Moments later, he tugged me onto the bed, rushing as he always did. There wasn't time or even the need to undress. I simply pulled up my skirt, and we got it over with fast. Every time felt like we were playing characters in a low-budget spy thriller, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what came next. The door burst open with a thunderous bang, the kind that shakes your soul. My affair partner was hurled backward into the room as if he'd been struck by a force of nature. I was still sprawled on the bed, stunned, paralyzed by shock, struggling to understand what had just happened. That's when I saw him, my husband, towering over the crumpled figure on the floor. The room was dimly lit, only by the soft neon glow bleeding in through the window. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of sweat, perfume, and secrets. This wasn't passion. It never had been, just habit, a fleeting distraction from a life gone dull. He barely even spoke anymore, just came in, got what he came for, and left as if we were part of some cold, mechanical operation. I had tried to convince myself it was exciting, but deep down, I knew it was hollow. Then came the door. It didn't creak. It didn't edge open timidly. It exploded open with brutal certainty, and the sound that followed wasn't a voice. It was impact, the awful, unmistakable sound of a fist landing with full force, bone on flesh. A sickening snap tore through the silence. Before I could comprehend what was unfolding, the weight that had been on top of me was violently ripped away. I gasped. His body flew across the room, hitting the floor with a terrible thud. A pained groan escaped him. My heart stalled. My head turned sharply, ears ringing, and there he was, my husband, standing in the doorway. A shadow stretched out from his frame across the room. His fists were still clenched, knuckles raw and trembling, but his face, it was calm, too calm. His gaze locked on mine, and for the first time since this tangled affair began, I felt true fear. He didn't scream. He didn't demand answers. He just stood there, eyes heavy with something unreadable. I opened my mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to explain, or maybe just to lie, but no words made it out. Behind him, the door shut with a gentle click, a small sound, yet somehow it echoed like a gavel. Then came his voice, flat and chilling. "Get up." I swallowed hard, limbs stiff and unwilling to move. My affair partner groaned from the floor, trying to lift himself. My husband didn't even glance at him. I said, "Get up." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. With trembling hands, I reached for my clothes. My breath came in short bursts. Every nerve screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I knew instantly this wasn't fury. It wasn't betrayal. This was something darker. A decision had already been made, and that thought terrified me. The room was suffocating, heavy with dread. My pulse thundered in my ears as I fought to stand, tangled in the sheets. My husband remained frozen in the doorway, expressionless, but the weight of his silence crushed me. My affair partner whimpered again, holding his face where the punch had landed. He blinked, disoriented. "What the—" Before he could finish, another savage kick landed, this time to his ribs. The sound that followed made my stomach turn. A crunch. He gasped, curling inward in agony. Couldn't breathe. This wasn't a man lashing out. This was surgical. My husband was never impulsive. He was deliberate, precise, cold. Every step calculated. That was far more terrifying than any outburst ever could be. I tried to speak. "Please," but when his eyes flicked to mine, the rest of the sentence died in my throat. He turned back to the man writhing on the floor. "Get up." No response. Another blow, this one to the stomach. He choked, coughing violently, trying to drag himself away. My husband crouched beside him, grabbed a handful of his hair, and yanked his head up. "You enjoy touching what belongs to another man?" His voice was too calm, quiet even. The man whimpered. Without warning, my husband slammed his head against the floor. I gasped, my hands flying to my mouth, my breath caught in my chest. Then my husband turned back to me. "Get dressed." I was already scrambling, my fingers clumsy as I tugged my skirt back into place and reached for my blouse. My mind was spinning, frantically trying to make sense of what was happening. Was he going to talk? Leave? Hurt me? But then the truth hit me like a wave of ice. He wasn't telling me to dress because he wanted to talk. He was taking me somewhere, and I had no idea where. Behind me, my affair partner coughed, trying to push himself up. Man, listen. A punch silenced him, crashing into his jaw and snapping his head sideways. He crumpled with a groan. My husband stood calmly, adjusting his sleeves like he had just finished brushing lint off his jacket. Then he looked at me, his head tilted slightly. Let's go. My voice cracked under the weight of fear. Where? He smiled. That smile told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't being led somewhere to talk. I was heading toward judgment. He reached for my wrist. His grip wasn't painful, but it was unshakably firm. Move! My heart was pounding like a war drum as he led me out of the room, past the broken man on the floor. The bastard didn't even try to get up. Maybe he knew better. As we entered the hallway, something even more chilling set in. My husband still wasn't yelling, still not lashing out. He wasn't out of control. He was in control completely. I tried again. Please, just let me explain. He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. Not here. Those two words froze my blood. Not here. That meant he had a place in mind, somewhere planned. We stepped outside. The night air slapped my skin like ice. He opened the passenger side of the car and gestured for me to get in. I hesitated. I could run. I could scream. But then I looked at him. This wasn't a man who would chase me down in a rage. He wouldn't make a scene. He'd wait, and when I least expected it, whatever punishment he had planned would be worse. So I got in. The door shut behind me like a verdict. Moments later, he slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. The silence was unbearable. City lights flickered past the windows as we drove. I sat frozen, fists clenched tight in my lap, trying not to fall apart. Then I saw where we were going. No, no, no. He pulled into the lot of the restaurant, where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. The place where once upon a time he held my hand across a camel table and promised forever. He parked, turned off the car. Then at last he looked at me. Get out. I hesitated. Why? His voice hardened. I said, get out. A place where people toasted anniversaries, celebrated engagements, and whispered sweet promises across camel tables. And yet this was where my husband had chosen to dismantle my life. A waiter approached, wearing the kind of practiced smile that came from years of service. Good evening, sir. Table for two. My husband responded with a hand pressed firmly against the small of my back. We have a reservation. I booked it last week. I froze. A week ago, that meant he knew. He had known before tonight. My stomach coiled as realization hit. The waiter led us through the crowd, past couples lost in affection and laughter, straight to a table positioned dead center in the room. Not secluded, not tucked discreetly near a wall. No, this was deliberately chosen. A spotlight. He pulled out a chair for me. Sit. I obeyed, feeling my heartbeat roar in my ears. He took the seat across from me, perfectly composed. Then, wordlessly, he placed his phone on the table, screen facing up. I barely had the courage to look, but when I did, I saw it. Recordings streaming live, shared to a group chat. A group number I didn't recognize. His voice was low, almost soft. Take a good look. I turned, and there they were, scattered among the crowd at separate tables. His friends, his colleagues, and worst of all, mine, my family, my friends, all seated like spectators at a play. Some pretended to eat, but their expressions gave them away. They knew, they had seen, and now everyone was watching. I tried to breathe, but the air felt too thick to swallow. He leaned forward, hands calmly folded. Now remind me, how long has it been? The world around us dimmed. The clatter, the laughter, the music, it all vanished. There was only the sound of my heartbeat and his voice, still streaming, still broadcasting this humiliation in real time. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He tilted his head slightly. No answer. I swallowed, every eye in the restaurant burning into my skin. The weight of it was unbearable. Please, I whispered. He didn't blink. How long have you been sleeping with him? Everything stopped. A few diners, strangers not in on the setup, had paused mid-bite, their forks hovering, their eyes locked on me. The shame was suffocating. I could lie, but the look in his eyes told me that would seal my fate. 6 months, I choked out. His lips twitched, a smile. Not of amusement, but of grim confirmation. He already knew. Of course he did. From the inside pocket of his jacket, he pulled out a small black USB drive. He set it next to the phone and tapped it with a finger. I had cameras installed last month. His tone disturbingly casual, like we were discussing renovations. Not just in the bedroom, living room, kitchen, even the garage. A chill rolled through me. I've got hours of footage. Dozens of clips of you letting him in after I left for work. He leaned in again. Did you ever think twice? Even once? Or did you just assume I was too stupid to notice? Tears burned behind my eyes. I didn't mean... Don't, he cut in sharply. Don't insult me with, I didn't mean to. I went silent. There was nothing I could say he hadn't already disproven. He leaned back, tapped the USB again. That's not even the highlight. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, legal-sized, thick. He slid it across the table. My lawyer prepared this weeks ago, already signed on my end. I hesitated. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Divorce papers, and worse, attached were terms. Ruthless ones. The house gone. Joint accounts frozen. The car in his name. My job, the very position I'd gotten through his connections, he had already made sure that thread was cut. He let me absorb it, let the weight of it crush me. I could drag you through court, he said calmly. I could take the footage to a judge. Make sure you walk away with nothing. He glanced at the phone. I could send this stream to your boss, your parents. Post it online. Make it go viral. But he drummed his fingers against the table. I'm offering you one chance. I looked up, vision blurred, throat raw. One chance to disappear. Sign the papers. Pack up. Be gone by tomorrow. He picked up the USB and rolled it between his fingers. But if you fight me... His voice softened into a whisper that felt like a blade. If you even think about making this difficult, he smiled, I will ruin you. Completely. I sat frozen. Humiliated. Exposed. My entire world reduced to whispers, stares, and ink on paper. My hand reached for the pen he had placed beside the documents. And there, under the gaze of strangers and loved ones alike, my betrayal laid bare for all to see. I signed. The second the pen left the page, he stood, straightened his jacket, scooped up the USB and the phone. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving me sitting in the wreckage. Alone. Empty. And it wasn't over. She thought that moment was her bottom. But I knew better. That was just step one. Her shame was now public. Her support system gone. Friends distanced themselves. Her family, disgusted, cut ties. Her employer fired her without hesitation. A moral clause hidden in her contract sealed the deal. The videos had already started circulating. Behind the scenes, I'd done even more damage. I moved assets, closed accounts, and locked down every legal advantage. When she tried to contest it, she found out too late. She had already signed everything away in that restaurant in front of the world. She called me once. Her voice cracked with desperation. Please, can we talk? I smiled. We already did. Then I hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice. As for me, I walked away with my future intact and left her buried beneath the consequences of her own choices. Was it revenge? Maybe. Did it go too far? You tell me. Drop your thoughts below. And if you love stories that hit hard and leave an impact, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. We've got more tales of betrayal and justice coming your way. Your support means everything. Thanks for being part of the ride.